What is it that you do to get back to that allows you to have that daily love for him? Welcome to the Kick-Ass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kick-Ass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Couples Podcast. Today's episode brings us this kick-ass husband and wife duo, Trey and Lee Morgan, who took their passion for marriage and deep abiding friendship to create a formidable team as successful marriage coaches. Trey and Lee have been married for over 30 years and together have raised 4 incredible boys. They have been involved in the marriage ministry and marriage coaching for over 20 years. They feel blessed to get to speak to thousands of people each year on how to build godly, healthy marriages and families. Trey and Lee have 2 marriage books. One is the bestseller 10 Ways to a Stronger Marriage and Wisdom for Your Marriage, which you can find and order from Amazon. Trey and Lee work together to build a stronger marriage with their weekend workshops called Stronger Marriage and Stronger Families. In their Stronger Marriage workshops, they focus exclusively on marriage. They deal with contemporary topics on the subject of marriage in a practical way, giving inspiring ideas on how to improve your number one relationship. In their Stronger Families workshop, they cover topics that primarily deal with the family unit. Topics like parenting, how to grow blended families, marriage, and much more. You can find their podcast, the Stronger Marriage Podcast, on places like Apple, Google Podcasts, and Spotify.
Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Couples Podcast. We are excited to have a dynamic couple with us today. We have Lee and Trey Morgan, and welcome to the podcast. So glad you all could join us today.
Thank you. We are so honored to be here with you guys.
We are.
Thank you. It was funny how we came across you. We work with Ashley, who's part of the KCN organization. She said, I found this really cool couple. You got to check them out. And we looked on your website and looked about the great work you were doing and thought, man, we want to find out how the experts do it in their own relationship. So we're going to start off by asking you all a question. And Trey, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. What do you think makes you all a kick-ass couple?
I think the fact that we have refused to give up on marriage over 34 years, that we've realized that it took work from the beginning. It wasn't anything that we realized we got to go to work and make this marriage work. But we think that looking back now, some of the things that we did well was we attended workshops, we read books, we did a bunch of stuff that really helped us to grow as a young couple, that we really look back on now and go, that really blessed us, because we were very young when we got married. And it was one of those things where we came into a relationship and it was all so new to us. Because we'd lived with our parents for all of our life, and we were high school sweethearts and got married early. But the main thing is we just didn't quit when things got tough.
And that's key. You stuck it out and hung in there. That's great. What would you add to that, Lee?
I think I would add, in those early years when we started having some conflicts, and I kept thinking, if he would just fix this, or if he would just fix that. And it wasn't until I realized I needed to fix me and make some changes with me. and that just bettered our entire relationship when I made the changes that I needed to make and focused on me instead of focusing on what he needed to do better.
Sure. And that's a key point. I think that when we're pointing that obligatory finger and saying there's three coming back at us, I'm curious, when in your relationship or marriage did that revelation kind of come to you? Because some people get it early, some people get it late, and some people unfortunately never get it. So how did that come out to you, and when did you have that discovery?
I think, man, I'm going to say we were probably 7 or 8 years in. We did, what was the Joe Beam? The His Needs, Her Needs. We did the His Needs, Her Needs class, and we went and got, certified to be facilitators for that, and realized that we really needed to make some changes of our own before we could start helping other couples. And I think that's probably really, about year 7 or 8 of our marriage.
Took us a while to figure it out. We just knew we were very different.
Sure. That's great.
I appreciate hearing that you, at the very early stages of your relationship, had the foresight to say, we need marriage enrichment. And you did a lot of that early on. If you are a young couple and you're listening to this podcast right now, I can't say enough of how much I think that is additive and such a great, value to a relationship if you can do that early on. I don't think we did. I think we came to that later in the relationship. But I think if we would have started earlier, that we would have been a lot happier earlier on.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, in our own story, we probably didn't have the revelation. There's things we did to work on it, but not in the way we should. I'd say not till having been married for 20 years. And so it wasn't until after 20 years we're like, hey, this isn't horrible, but it's really not what we want and need it to be. We got to do some serious work and make it better. And then that's when I can honestly say now we're celebrating 28 years of marriage, everybody. I think we told this earlier to this kick-ass couple, but this Saturday will be 28 years for us. And so the only reason we've been able to do that is because of our commitment and our prioritization of each other. And we really make sure that I never thought when I got married that it could be as good as it is right now. So it's better than I thought, and it's because of that commitment and that prioritization. And it sounds like you all drink that Kool-Aid and believe that message and the work that you're doing, and we do as well.
And it keeps getting better every year. And we also know that it continues to take work, that even though we're extremely happy and content in our marriage right now, we know that we're in a new stage in life. We're empty nesters, and it's going to take work for us to continue to have that. But yeah, it's every year we just think it can't get any better, and it does.
Well, I believe that we are a product of the people who raised us. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about your history and a little bit about what love looked like to each of you when you were growing up. And so, Lee, I'd love to start with you. Tell me a little bit about how your family expressed love, how your parents expressed love to each other.
I remember Mom and Dad were very affectionate with each other all the time. As soon as they saw each other after being gone all day, there was hugs and kisses, and they would sit down in the afternoons and drink coffee and talk about their days together. And that's something that Trey and I do now. And I hadn't really realized it until I'm just now saying it, that was something that my parents did. And we think that's so important, just that communication and the catching up and the connection when you've been apart from each other. It's vital to your relationship.
Sure. How about you?
My story is a little bit different. I came from a blended family, and my blended family was a little different than a lot of blended families. My father died of cancer when I was a young boy. I do not remember him. So my mother was a widow at about 30 years old, and she married a widower who had lost his wife in a car accident. And so they were married. I was about 5 or 6 at the time that they got married. And thankfully, He was a good man who did not raise me as a stepchild, did not ever call me a stepson, raised me as his own son just as much, and loved me and didn't treat me any different than he did his own children that he actually brought into this world. And so he made a huge influence in my life. And today, the example he set with my mom, the thing that really kicks out to me that they did well was in this blended family was they went into it and they had each other's backs. He had 4 kids. My mom had 3. So that made 9 in his family. And instead of all of us pitching one another against, hey, tell this new dad in here, we need to do this, or, his kids saying, hey, tell the new lady that we don't do things this way. They had each other's back, and there was no pitting them against one another. They went into that going, I will be by your side, and we will not let the kids divide us. And they were fantastic with that. I cannot ever remember them arguing or fighting over something that had to do with our blended family. And they just stood by each other's side while they raised us, going, hey, if you talk back to one, the other one's going to get you, because we are a team as a married couple raising these 7 kids.
Sure, that unity is so important. In a family of 3, nonetheless a family of 9, yeah. That's huge. And when you do come from a blended family, sometimes there is that opportunity where you might tend to want to take sides. So I love hearing that. That's a beautiful story.
It is. And I think that for anybody that's out there that's in a blended family, could you guys share one thing? I know that's part of the ministry and the work that you're doing, and that's something you cover in your workshops. Would you say that what you just talked about is one of the biggest issues or challenges that can occur? Or is there, if you had to give somebody some advice, or what's the biggest thing that you've learned in dealing and counseling people who have those blended families?
You gonna go?
I'll let you.
Okay. And the main thing, the incredible thing about blended families is you got a man and a woman who are in love. They want to get married, and they're so excited about it, but their kids may not be. And so they go into it thinking everything's going to be easy, or if anything, it may just take us a year and we're all going to be blended and working and cogs smooth and no issues. And it takes years to blend a family to where they feel like this isn't my stepbrother or stepsister. This is my brother. And so the main thing that we see is couples go into this, and 6 months into marriage, they're like, what have we done? And we're like, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to be unified as husband and wife, and you're going to have to be patient, because this is not going to happen overnight. You're not going to connect and blend 2 families. You're not going to graft them together overnight and expect there to be smooth sailing.
That's great advice. Good advice. Be patient and stay unified. I appreciate that. Thank you. And so that kind of leads into we have 14 pillars, and we think those are all critical qualities in any successful relationship. And we really try to focus on the 3 C's. And those 3 C's are commitment, communication, and conflict resolution. So Lee, I'd love to start off with you and say, how would you describe what commitment looks like in your relationship with Trey?
I think that, you have to recommit every single day that you put your feet on the floor, you get out of bed and you're like, I'm going to love my spouse today. I may not feel like I love him very much today, but I'm going to show him that I love him. And you have to decide, in your mind that you're committed every single day.
That's a good point.
That's a good point. And so when that challenge comes, and I know we've all been there, we have, and probably all of our listeners, when you're saying, man, I'm just angry at he or her for doing this or that, what is it that you do to get back to that allows you to have that daily love for him?
I think just remembering, the good times that we've had, and wanting to keep making things better. Like you said, it has gotten better through the years, and I don't want to be stuck in one of those rough spots, so I want to try to do everything I can to get past the rough spot. So I think remembering the good times is always key to wanting to get back to the good.
Sure, that's great. Trey, what would you add about that? What does commitment look like to you in your relationship with Lee?
Well, it's kind of the same way. Our faith our faith is based on a lot of commitment in a sense of what Lee said, that there are days to where, love is an action. Love is really not a feeling. We have feelings that come from love and from spending time together and being together. But there are days that I get up and don't feel in love. And yet my faith and my commitment to Lee says, I'm going to love her today, even though I don't feel anything, because I know that love is more than a feeling. It's an action, and a commitment that I made with God says, even though I don't feel like loving her today, because I told you I would, I will. Commitment is more than a feeling. It seems like love the butterflies that I get, and I still get butterflies even after 34 years, but love is more than butterflies. And in a world we kind of live in today that says, hey, I don't feel in love, and so we really ought not to be married. Love is more than a feeling. It is a commitment, and I make that commitment to her every morning when I get up, whether I feel it or not, because I also have made that commitment to God. I've promised him that I would love her even on days. We always say every now and then there are days we don't like each other very well, but we still choose to love each other because that's commitment.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, what I hear you both saying is that every day you make an active choice to be committed to each other. Every day when you wake up, that's a commitment that you've made in your relationship. And I think that our listeners can really resonate with that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So the second of our 3 C's is communication. And we believe that communication is vital, the way we communicate with each other in every relationship. And so I'm curious, what does communication look like in your relationship? How do you communicate with each other? How do you make time to communicate?
I mentioned it earlier. Every afternoon, we have what we call coffee time, where we sit down and maybe, 20, 30 minutes, and we try to talk about, our day, what our day looks like, maybe what's coming up. If we don't have that time in the afternoons, we do it nearly every night when we're getting ready for bed. We'll climb into bed and we'll talk about, what's coming up tomorrow. We just have to make sure we're on the same page, and no, there's no surprises. Let's talk about, how did you feel about something? We talk about maybe asking what was the high point of your day? What was the low point of your day? And really doing a check-in, an emotional check-in every once in a while. So yeah, just really talking about things and making sure we're on the same page with our schedules is a big thing for us.
Sure. Do you have touch points throughout the day?
We do. I mean, we're together more than we're apart, just because of our work situation. So, but if we are apart, we're constantly texting each other, even if it's just, I saw a silly meme and it made me think of you, and we'll send it to each other. But yeah, we constantly are staying in touch throughout the day.
And Trey, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that it took me a while to figure this out, that this was important. Now, I knew communication was important, but as a man who maybe didn't see the need for communication, it took me a few years of marriage to realize that when Lee was asking me questions about my day or what was going on in my world, she wasn't really trying to interrogate me. She wasn't trying to find out who you've been with, what you've been doing. She was just trying to connect with me. And when I finally, that bulb came on, I realized that it wasn't, hey, she's just trying to find out and control me and what I'm doing. She really just wants to connect with me, and she does that through communication. Then I got to the point where I realized that, hey, it doesn't bother me to tell you kind of where I've been, what I'm doing, what's going on in my world, talk to you about my dreams, my goals, my past. And things went a lot smoother when I got to the point that I realized that this was something that my wife needed. And even though I might not need it, if she needs it, I'm more than happy to give that, whatever that is in my world, because that's part of love and part of marriage.
Sure. Bids for connection in a relationship when they're gone unnoticed can be really detrimental to your relationship. And you're right, it's not that she was interrogating, she just was making a bid for your just you guys to connect and to be able to speak and to be able to share a moment together.
And I think that's a point I want to touch on a little bit, because it's, I don't like it, statements that say all men or all women, because there is no absolute. You could say typically or societally or fundamentally, but I think a lot of men struggle with that higher level of communication. And we, Trey, you and I have felt the same way before and had that epiphany as well. It's not that there's no trust necessarily. It's just that they want to connect, and they want to connect emotionally, and they want to, women use 300 words where men use 60. Right? I mean, it's literally a 5-to-1 ratio of communication. So it's more of a style, not that she's controlling me. She's got to know. And I think that if more men realize that it's like Kim said beautifully, it's a bid for connection. They want to be close. They want to have understanding. They want to talk and they want to relate. And all the guys have to do is say, this is what they need. And of course, I want to give my partner what they need and have that connection. And it's a beautiful example that you and Kim talked about. And I think that my hope is that more men will realize it's not controlling, it's not manipulative, it's not trust, it's a desire to connect. And connection builds intimacy, and men love intimacy. And if they want to have that greater connection, then it can certainly lead to a natural, deeper intimacy.
Absolutely.
When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kick-Ass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kick-Ass Couples Nation right now. That. And our second, we've talked about commitment, and we're talking a little bit about communication. And our third C is conflict resolution. And for someone that's been married as long as y'all have and that we have, it doesn't really matter. The conflicts will always arise, disagreements or misinterpretations. So, Lee, I'd love to start with you and say, when a conflict or a disagreement arises, how do you guys deal with it? What does conflict resolution look like in your relationship?
Well, we do always try to talk things out instead of just, we always say don't sweep things under the rug, because it's not going to get better. You're just pretty soon you're just going to have this big heap hiding under the rug. So we do try to talk things out. We have realized that sometimes we need to say, you know what, I might say some things that I'm going to regret if we talk about this right now. So let's take a couple of hours, or maybe even let's get back to this tomorrow so that when we have time to cool off. I'm the one whose temper can rise pretty quickly, and I have to realize those warning signs in myself, that I'm starting to get a little out of control and have to call a timeout. So, but we do always talk things out. We never just say, we're going to sweep that under the rug.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to the fact that you maybe escalate a little quicker than Trey does. And you said, sometimes I have to call a timeout. Give our listeners an example of what that might look like, if you don't mind.
I think, just in the middle of sometimes talking, I have told him, you know what, we just need to take a break. We just need to stop right here because I'm getting angry. And I just say, we'll get back to it. Give me time to cool off. We have even gone as far as writing some things down, on paper and giving those to each other when we know that it's something really intense and that words could get out of control. We have written things down and shared things on paper, and that that's very helpful to keep things from
I like that
escalating.
idea.
Yeah.
Doesn't always have to be face to face and verbal.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes we use text
Yes.
if we're afraid. I may say something I don't want to say. I'll text it to you while I'm at my office or she's at her office or something.
And we always talk about it afterwards, after we've had time to read and process, then we can come together and talk about things calmly and rationally. And, it works for us.
Sure. How about you, Trey? Anything you would add to that about conflict, what conflict resolution looks like between the two of you?
We are very different people, but we don't do a lot of fighting and arguing. But what I think we've realized over the past several years of our marriage is that we're a team, and we've quit trying to go, I'm going to win. I want to win this. And I want to be right, because we've realized that if one of us loses, we really both lose, because we're supposed to be a team on this. And so it's not about winning or losing. And we've also got to the point many times where we've just kind of said, let's just agree to kind of disagree on this, because it's not worth us losing sleep over or us being frustrated with one another. And so there are some things that we just choose to agree to disagree on, and we go on with life, and life's much better.
I think that's a good point. I want to kind of come back to that for our listeners, because agreement or disagreement does not mean love and not love. You can have a disagreement and say, you know what, we're going to have to agree to disagree on this. I feel this way, and I'm pretty strongly in that. You feel that way, but you know what? We understand why we feel that way, and we can move on. I think a lot of people feel, oh my gosh, if we don't resolve this and get to something that we both love and feel is right, it's a problem. And, 2/3 of all issues in a relationship, you're not going to solve. They're perpetual. So it's really about understanding, and why is that important to you? Why do you feel that way? How did you draw that conclusion? And then say, all right, well, if we can't get consensus, it doesn't mean you don't love each other. It means you've done your best to understand, and we're going to move on beyond it, because we want to get back to that sweet spot and not let this hold us up. So I appreciate you saying that. It's not about winning.
I think it's also okay to disagree, right? Because at the end of the day, if this is the way you really feel, I need to respect that about you. That's one of the things that I love about you, right? So I think it's important to not feel like somebody has to win or lose, but that you both win and you both come to an understanding.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump
Oh,
on.
no, go ahead.
Stands out to us that we say oftentimes is, certain things work for certain people, and forever and ever, everybody's favorite marriage advice has been, don't go to bed angry. And we're that couple that goes, hey, sometimes you just need to sleep on it, and you wake up the next morning and realize it was not that big a deal. Why were we aggravated with each other about that? And so,
100%.
Staying up until 2:00 in the morning to argue about something when you're exhausted is not making things better. Just go to sleep.
Yeah. Good advice. Always and never are never go to, always and never are scary, because they sound pretty absolute, and that only comes true in some areas for sure.
Well, we have 11 other pillars, and I believe you have that list in front of you, that we believe are necessary to have a successful marriage. And so I'm curious, Trey, of the 11 other pillars, is there one that really resonates with you, one that stands out to you that you really think?
Well, all of the 11 are fantastic, and they're all a part of our marriage. And trying to pick your favorites, trying to pick your favorite kid, it's really kind of hard to do. But one that really stands out to me, I'll talk about this for a second, is the intimacy side of it, because I feel like for married couples, that most married couples, or all married couples, I'd like to say all in this situation, don't want to get to feeling like they're in a marriage with a roommate. They want to feel a connection, that they're married to a soulmate or someone they have a connection with. And if there's no intimacy in that marriage, then you pretty much are just, you got a roommate that's sharing a house and paying bills and raising kids together. So to me, intimacy is one of those things that really stands out. And that intimacy can be everything from the recreational intimacy of spending time together, the conversational intimacy of conversation. But one of the big things that we talk about that we think is a huge deal is, of course, the sexual intimacy side of it. And for a long time, we've always in our marriage, sex has been important to us, but for a long time it's just kind of fun. It's a cherry on top of the marriage. And we didn't realize the importance of sexual intimacy in our relationship, that it took us a while to figure out that this is actually something that is good for our marriage, that it actually connects us, reconnects us. It reminds us that we're not mom and dad, we're husband and wife. We are not two people sharing a house together. You're married, we're one, and it connected us. And some couples forget that. They lose that intimacy and they don't feel that connection or that bond or that spark with their spouse anymore. And they feel like they've got a roommate instead of a soulmate. And so that intimacy one, even after 34 years of marriage, stands out to me personally as a really important thing.
How about you, Lee? Do you have anything to add to that? And then do you, of course, have your own special pillar that you really resonate with?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what he said on the intimacy side of it. It did take us a while to realize how fundamental it really is in being a glue that holds us together. There were periods of time where, we might go a long stretch without being sexually intimate, and we'd find ourselves really just getting on each other's nerves. And, it's almost like when we did come together and reconnect sexually, it was like, hey, I like you again, and we didn't realize really what a perk it was and what a glue it was for our marriage. So that's all I would add to that. I guess as far as the one that really stood out to me was the faith and moral code. Because we do, we base our marriage ministry on, putting God first, and that's very important to us in our marriage. And when I'm answering to a higher calling, I feel like everything else just kind of falls into place as it should. I'm going to be more appreciative. I'm going to be more selfless. I'm going to be more loving. I'm going to be more patient. I'm going to be more trustworthy and more honest. That's just the way I try to live my life. And so I think the faith part of it is really huge for me.
Sure. I really resonate with that pillar as well. And I think, Matthew, you would agree when you are aligned with God and your faith is on track, then I feel like everything, not just your marriage, but your family, your extended family, everything really falls into place. So thank you for sharing that.
I appreciate that. And it kind of leads us into another area that we love to talk about. We both believe in the philosophy of what we call spillover thinking. And we think that the marriage relationship is really the center and that everything flows out from there. It's not that thing that's one of many things, but the goodness in your relationship really feeds and motivates and spills over into other areas of your life. So, Trey, I'd like to start with you and say, how have you seen the goodness of your marriage spill over into other areas of your life?
I think with our children is a big thing. And I'm probably stealing a little bit of what she was going to say because we both noticed this. We have two married children. We have 4 boys. 2 of them are married. One of them has a serious girlfriend, a third one, and the other one has dated off and on. But we've noticed in their relationships with their wives that they've actually said things like, well, we didn't realize how important it was that you guys modeled what marriage was supposed to look like, which we really at the time didn't know we were doing that. We look back now at times when we might have left them for date night or with an aunt so that we could go overnight somewhere by ourselves, which didn't happen very often. And I know that there were times that we would probably feel very guilty about that. Oh, we're leaving our kids. We've had them for 364 days, but this one day we're feeling, but we would go off and we would remind ourselves that we're husband and wife. And our kids might go, why are y'all going on a date? Why aren't you taking us? And now we look back and we realize how important that was, that they saw that we were giving our relationship as husband and wife some priority over just always being mom and dad. And so they have watched us date. They have watched One of the things that I enjoy doing for Lee is I always open the car door for her. And we noticed years ago when we go out as a family, the boys just knew somebody's supposed to open mom's car door because that's what they've seen dad do. And now they open car doors for their wives or their girlfriends. And so it's nice to see that some of the things that we modeled spilled over into the lives of our children, because
Sure.
we definitely could have spilled over some bad things and some bad habits and some things that we didn't want them to catch. But we're glad that we modeled or tried to model affection and kissing in front of them and flirting with one another. We wanted them to see that we were more than just mom and dad. We were also husband and wife.
I hope our listeners really are listening to this, because modeling that behavior for your children, and especially for your boys, is such a gift to them. And, they might go, ooh, when they see you kissing and, flirting with each other. But the truth of the matter is that they're taking all that in. It's giving them confidence, and it's building trust in the future for them as well.
Love that. Thanks for sharing that. Lee, what would you add about spillover? What do you see in the goodness of your relationship and how it spills over to other areas of your life?
I think, it really makes me appreciate, we had mentors that we looked up to when we were young, as a young married couples that we looked at, and, the goodness of their marriage spilled over into our lives. And now we can be that for other young couples, not just our children, but, just our community as a whole. We can show them what a healthy marriage looks like.
Sure. That's great. Thank you.
So I have a fun question for you. If you could go back and give your unmarried self, Lee, if you could give your unmarried self one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
I would have to tell myself to lighten up. Don't expect so much perfectionism. I am a perfectionist, and that is hard on marriage. I think when you expect everything to be perfect, because it's not going to be. And I would tell myself, you've got to lighten up.
That's great advice. How about you, Trey? If you could go back and put your hands on the shoulders of your unmarried self, what would you say?
I would tell myself to grow up. She said lighten up. I would say grow up. That it's your job's not to entertain everybody. Your job is everybody doesn't have to like you. You don't need everybody's approval. And I would tell myself to grow up. You can handle being more mature than what you are at this time.
Great.
Good advice.
Well, we're all in this together, right? We all are, like Matthew would say, drinking the same Kool-Aid, and we're really trying to help people prioritize their marriage and their relationships. Is there a burning question you're wanting to answer that maybe we haven't asked? Something you'd like to share?
Yeah, families at the dinner table. That is your passion.
Oh yeah. I do tend to bring this up a lot when we do.
She is so passionate about this, and it's a great thing to be passionate about.
It just seems like every time we do a podcast episode, or even when we're, in the middle of a workshop, and I'll just have to say, what, if you just sit down and have dinner as a family together, it would just help so many things. And we've gotten away from the dinner table. Families have gotten so busy that a lot of times they're eating on the go, and we're not taking that time to sit down and connect as a family. And, it's such a great time to talk, let everybody have a turn talking about, the high point, low point of their day. Things they're looking forward to, things they're having a hard time with. And I think with our children, especially right now, we really need to give them time to voice those things, so that things don't sneak up on us and we don't realize, they've been having this issue for months and we haven't been aware of it because we just haven't sat down as a family and spent time together. So I am very passionate about the dinner table.
Yeah. And maybe it's because we had so many good times around our dinner table. Mm-hmm. Our rules were at least once a day, in the evening. Everybody comes at the same time. We sit down, we eat. Do not bring your cell phone to the table. And we just had some great times at the dinner table. It was a really important thing to us. And if you're not careful what you do now, even us today, we still need dinner table time now, even though we're empty nesters, because families and couples today are grabbing food and they're going to the living room to sit in front of the television set. And then they're going, we never communicate. And it's because you never sit down and talk or eat together.
Yeah, intentional communication is huge, especially in our digital age today. And I think the time you can share a meal with somebody, it's something that everybody has to do. And you can either make it perfunctory and say, well, let's just get through it, or you can say, let's be intentional and make sure we're getting all the good out of it that we can. So I appreciate you all bringing that back to us. And we are so grateful for the time you've given us today and being vulnerable and sharing from your own rich experience. If people want to learn more about who you are and what you do, where should they go and where should they look?
You can find us online at treyandlee.com, TREYANDLEA.com. That will take you to our landing page if you want to go to our podcast, if you want to find our upcoming workshops. We do 12 to 15 workshops a year all over the U.S. You can find information on our books on that landing page. It will take you all to the right place, but that's where you can find more information about us.
Terrific.
Well, thank you both for being with us. Thank you for all the great content that you're putting out there and for all the marriages that you are helping. We're so grateful.
We look forward to seeing you guys again soon.
Thank you.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kick-Ass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kick-Ass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com. and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.